Hello, everyone. Welcome to Next Big Future. Today, I'm going to be talking about a Bloomberg forecast cited by Meet Kevin. Meet Kevin's a very popular YouTuber, and he also ran for California governor in the recall election. Came in second place on that recall election. And Bloomberg had a forecast that Volkswagen will be #1 in electric vehicles and unit volumes in 2025. I can say why that is ridiculous. Just like GM claims they'll be #1, everyone just laughs that off. I think Tesla's going to crush Volkswagen Group in Europe in 2023. Go into the data that explains my position. So Bloomberg has this forecast, which is that by 2025, Volkswagen Group will have combined 2.5 million EV sales, and that Tesla will only have 2.5 million. A little less than 2.5. Actually, they're projecting that Volkswagen Group will pass Tesla in 2024 with 2.2 million sales versus 2.1 million for Tesla. So somehow Tesla will not be able to get over 500,000 cars produced out of Berlin, and another 500,000 cars produced out of Austin, and then a million plus out of China and Fremont. Will also stack 600,000. If you had Fremont 600,000, which is about where they're at today, 800,000 from China, and then 500,000 out of each Berlin and Austin, you're already at 2.4 million. So just ramping up Berlin and Austin, just that is enough to get to that. But basically, they're saying that somehow that they'll stop there, even though Tesla said that they're going to grow their China production by double, and then they're also expanding the Berlin and Austin production, and they're also expanding the Fremont production. But somehow, all of that is all they're going to get, and that they're saying that they're going to grow at least 50% every year. That's all going to miss. So basically, they're saying that everyone else meets their targets and Tesla doesn't. And then somehow Volkswagen Group is going to have all the growth, which they're projecting next year that they'll get to 1.5 million in 2023. So let's take a look at that. So problems. Where are things today? And I can also really deep dive in on LFP batteries, iron LFP batteries, which I think are critical for high volumes of production for any maker. And then we'll do a deep dive into China, Europe, and the US markets to really take a look at what's happening here. So first, in Q1, Volkswagen Group was 4th in unit volumes. They were 2nd last year, but they're 4th this year. So not going the right direction. And they're just ahead of Hyundai Kia. So the number 2 and number 3, kind of asterisks on those, because those are the Shanghai Automotive Group with 154,000, and that's mostly joint venture with GM, and they're making super cheap $5,000 cars, the Wuling Mini, very famous, making these ultra cheap cars that only sell in China, not safe for US roads. Basically, literally a golf cart, a golf cart that you can drive on the road. So something with like 10 kilowatt hour, 5 kilowatt hour, 7 kilowatt hour batteries, like the batteries you stick in a golf cart. BYD also makes cheaper cars, though they have some on the higher end. Look at those, but basically they're getting to half the Tesla volume. Their average per sale price ends up being about 1/3 of Tesla, so they have 1/6 the dollar volume. Volkswagen's closer to Tesla's price, so their 1/3 of Tesla's cars is probably giving about 1/4 the battery electric vehicle revenue volume that Tesla has. That's the Q1 of 2022, our most recent numbers. Also, we can see that in Q2, there's less growth for most players other than in China. I think Volkswagen got about 6% growth in Q2, so not great. So what's been happening 2020 to 2021? Looking at the 8th quarters. And the volumes are weaker in Q1, Q2. We saw they were totally flat in Q1, Q2 of 2020, and then they, had stronger growth. They always have stronger growth towards Q4. So that's, you can also say that, if you go 5 times or 6 times Q1, might be a ballpark estimate of what you expect for the full year. So maybe you're looking at 500,000, 600,000 cars, up from 450,000 from 2021. But like I said, Q2 is already not looking that great. So they're have to expecting, really good Q3, Q4 numbers for them. So Q1 not growing globally. So they're minimal growth in Q1, Q2 in Europe. And we're talking battery electric vehicles, not battery electric vehicles plus plug-in hybrids. And that's always a confusion because of the 750,000 battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles that Volkswagen made, 300,000 of those were plug-in hybrids last year. And plug-in hybrids, we're not talking about that market, that matters to them, Volkswagen for making money, but plug-in hybrids are a interim thing that will phase out completely. It's looking like in Europe that they have peaked. The plug-in hybrids have peaked already in Europe. It's like 80,000 or the 156,000 cars in a month or whatever that you have for battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid. 80,000 are battery electric vehicles and 65,000 or so are plug-in hybrid. And the plug-in hybrid numbers, seem to be peaking, if not already peaked. And I think definitely they'll fit out. You can see that in Norway, where they ran in about 20% of the market share and then, have fallen off a cliff, just like the ICE cars have fallen off a cliff. And then Tesla Berlin will cut Tesla's cost to EU consumers by $15,000 because they won't have massive $10,000, $12,000 import duties, and they won't have $2,000 in shipping costs just in the car from China. And Volkswagen EVs are not efficient enough yet, and I don't think will be for a few years, to use iron LFP batteries to get 250 to 300 mile range. Using iron LFP batteries currently has about a 20-30% range penalty. And if you're not getting 400 miles out of your top end nickel vehicles, then you cannot, cut down to using LFP and still have 300 some miles of range, or 250 some miles of range. You're not getting 350. And Volkswagen's CEO Herbert Diess says it takes them 30 hours to build a car, an EV car, versus 10 hours for Tesla. So he's already said, they still have efficiencies, and they're not going to leap ahead to without redesigning their cars entirely. They have to switch off the ID4 car and come up with some new car that is designed from the get-go to be built in 10 hours or something like that. Step-by-step improvements. You're not going to shave off 2/3 of your labor by just minor improvements, right? Even the improvements that Tesla made, you're not getting that kind of leap in efficiency to get your labor down, without getting the parts out. You look at the parts in that Fannie Monroe does in its teardowns, and if you have like twice as many parts, you're not going to be able to shave off the labor, right? You're not going to get half the parts with a massive redesign. Like Tesla does the gigapress to take front and rear cast the vehicle in order to get out 300, 600 parts. Right? That's the kind of like massive change you need to get the parts out and get the labor out. Okay, and Volkswagen's not doing it. Okay, and their batteries are more expensive, just like the Ford batteries are more expensive. Just the way that is. One, because they're using expensive nickel, and then the nickel batteries that they're choosing to use are more expensive than the batteries that Tesla uses. And also they don't have the volume supply orders. So Bloomberg probably, they're thinking everyone else hits their targets or better, but Tesla misses their 50% annual. And then Tesla has their factories, and then they don't fully ramp Berlin and Austin for another 3-4 years, and then they don't expand out China like they're planning. They're planning to double China. If they double China at 800,000 to 1 million vehicles, then they get to 2 million vehicles from China alone. So, and they miss all that in the next few years, just utterly ridiculous. And then only BYD and Tesla currently have LFP batteries in factories. That's the GM numbers are all the cheap $5,000 joint venture vehicles, what to make $10 a car on. And then iron LFP batteries are already the majority of vehicles in China, and the battery production in China is mostly iron LFP. And the battery makers in China have invested $100-200 million into building battery factories, mostly iron LFP. So the world will be 60%, to 2/3 iron LFP batteries. So you cannot possibly be a high volume player if you're not doing iron LFP battery in 2025. You cannot compete over 1 million vehicles per year without iron LFP. Even Tesla right now has over half its vehicles as iron LFP batteries out of China. So when they get to say 1.8, 1.7 million vehicles this year, at least 1.5, over half of those vehicles, will be iron LFP. 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 will be nickel. Okay, so even Tesla is not making over 1 million vehicles out of nickel electric vehicles. Okay, so and then if Volkswagen is not using RFP, which I'll go into a bit more detail why that's a problem for them, they're not going to get to 2.5 million vehicles. So the electric car growth market is growing quickly. You can see in the breakdown between North America and Europe. This includes plug-in hybrids. So Bloomberg including plug-in hybrids in these numbers. So that's a problem when you include the 30-40% plug-in hybrid vehicles. Actually, 30% hybrid plug-in vehicles. So out of 6 million some vehicles, 4.5 million were battery electric. 1.52 million vehicles were plug-in hybrid, because the plug-in hybrids will go away. It's just people aren't going to have the dual thing. So Europe they're looking at having 3 to 4 million, and about 40% of the European vehicles are plug-in hybrid. And the North American vehicles here, North America is behind, not just because of a slower battery electric vehicle adoption. It's because 80% of the US vehicles are trucks, large SUVs that need a lot more batteries, a lot more tougher to make those electric. We're trying to do that now, but you need the Cybertruck and other things to happen before you can make those electric. And Volkswagen is not trying to make any trucks at all, electric trucks. And then China has a big market, but I'm gonna look into that. There's a lot of cheap cars there, which you can pad your numbers with unit volume if you go for cheap electric vehicles, but it's not gonna be profitability, it's not gonna compete with Tesla. Okay, so let's go over all the models. You can see that in March 2022, Tesla had number 1, number 2 by a wide margin. The non-bolded things, the things with blue, those are plug-in hybrids, which forget those things, but those are vestiges of the past, irrelevant to what's going to happen in 2025. The Wuling Mini, $5,000 car. Cherry QQ is a $5,000 car. Okay, so cheap cars. That's going to pad your numbers if you're going to make those things. But currently Volkswagen is not doing that. They could try and get a partnership there, but I'm not sure why a China car maker that's already making cheap cars needs a joint venture partner at this point, right? They're already making it. I'm not sure what Volkswagen brings to the table to help them win the cheap car market. And Volkswagen ID4 is 5th place. Of course, Volkswagen Group makes a lot more cars than just the Volkswagen vehicles. You add in the Porsches and the other brands under Volkswagen, but none of the other Volkswagen brands are on this top 20 list. Okay, so looking at ID4, just under 11,000 vehicles, which is about 8-9 times less than the Tesla combined Model Y, Model 3. Let's say Hyundai Ioniq at 10,000. Chang'an Benny is the Chang'an company is one that Bloomberg thinks is going to do really well. That is a $10,000 car. Okay, BYD also projected to do fairly well, although apparently for some reason not as well as Volkswagen. I definitely think BYD is more of a threat, but still BYD is skewing more towards the sub $25,000 car range. They have the Han, which is 10,000, but that's only like 1/5 of their vehicle, 1/5, 1/6 of their battery electric vehicles. They make 115,000 new energy vehicles, but only half of those are battery electric. So 1/5 are in the $33,000 to $39,000 range. Okay, below Tesla's range, but in the rough ballpark, and certainly competitive with the Volkswagen ID.4, about 10,000. The One Plus at roughly 25,000, 24 to 29,000, and the Kia. So Kia and Hyundai, have now combined. Hyundai, I think, bought Kia. The South Korean makers have a couple of vehicles on the top list. So I think that they are, and the Kia EV6 is a $41,000, $52,000 vehicle. I think those are, more competition. Cherry EQ, $9,000 vehicle. So again, that's, these cheap China vehicles. I think you can pad your numbers with cheap China EVs. China has about 1/3 of its vehicles that are the sub $8,000 EV vehicles, and I think that will continue into 2025. If China goes 80% of their 27 million vehicles, say 21 million, are EVs at that point, up from about 30% this year, then I expect 7 million sub $8,000 vehicles. So, GM might be able to pad, numbers by, like helping Wuling get to high volumes. The Wuling numbers have been flat. They got to get more models out there. It's a competitive space to make these cheap cars because a lot of makers are in there. And China had about 30% at the 8K to 30K EV range. So that may be another 6 million vehicles. So there's 14 million vehicles that if Tesla does not make a $25,000 car, that Tesla won't be competing for. So right now it seems like it's mainly China makers who are doing it, but you could, GM could get in there with a joint venture. Volkswagen had their joint ventures that could shift, probably will shift over to that, right? Because they have joint ventures in China making their gas vehicles. So they got to switch them over, and they'll probably make these cheap vehicles. We'll see how successful that transition is. I'm not confident that they haven't already transitioned, that the China domestic makers won't eat their lunch. But if they can make a joint venture that makes, 1 million or 2 million of these cheap vehicles in the $8,000, $20,000 range in China, then they would have 50-50 joint venture probably in order to get that happen. They can buy their way into that. But that's irrelevant to competing with the Tesla on the world stage, because Europe and the United States aren't buying those vehicles. And then when you try to sell those vehicles outside, some $15,000 vehicle in China, when you say go to Australia with that thing will sell $35,000. So you have to up the price by about 2 or 3 times to sell it in the North American market, because you have to add in safety features, other things, to make it safe to drive on developed country roads. They won't accept something that's that cheap. So 17% in the 30 to 38K range, about 4 million vehicles in 2025. 20%, 38K and over, 4.5 million. So Tesla has 55% of the 38K and over market in China right now. So they sold about 320,000 EVs in 2021 in China, not exported, sold in China. And in the 38K plus range, they sold for like 43K and up, 40K and up. And there was only 508,000 of those sold in China last year. So keeping that market share, and then getting to a 30K car, I think they could, Tesla China would do that, go to a 38K car in order to nearly double their addressable market. Like I said, Tesla may not compete for the 13 million EVs. So that's kind of up for grabs. China, I think it's going to be, pure China domestic makers that currently have it and will keep it mostly. But, a legacy car maker could try and buy their way in to that. Toyota is trying to get, I think, BYD to make their pure electric Camry-like vehicle, or a Corolla-like vehicle. But it's not clear that their brand carries over. The average car price is 47K in the US, up from 37K in 2019. Average used car price is 28K. Europe price is 30 to 40 in general, on average. 2.3 million EVs in 2021. And then the China over 30K market is 900K in 2021, out of, total of 2.9 million battery EVs in 2021. So, and then 508K and that over 38K market. If you can like and subscribe, that really helped me. So we go over the details, like I said, of those China EV sales, which I already have discussed. And then in terms of overall prices in North America, according to Kelly Bloomberg, Volkswagen's at 55K, Tesla's at 65K in April. Both have increased prices about 16%. So basically just the overall inflation of the cars prices. So the Tesla Model S and X, which are $100,000 vehicles, they're continuing to ramp up, competing out with the Porsche and other high-end things, Porsche being a sub-brand in Volkswagen Group. 2021 battery electric vehicles this is production numbers, 473,000 produced. Tesla exported 160,000 of those vehicles. BYD 320,000, XPeng just short of 100,000, NIO just short of 100,000. XPeng and NIO both make cars that in the price range that compete comparable with Tesla, WM Motors. I skipped over the Wuling. The Wuling numbers would be like 150,000, wherever in here. And no Volkswagen here. EV US competition. You can see that in Q1, Tesla's 113,000, Volkswagen's fifth, with just short of 3,000 vehicles. So, 30, 40 times less than Tesla in the US market. And in March, when Tesla gets full deliveries and stuff in, they have a combined almost 60,000 vehicles for Model 3 and Model Y. Outsells the ID4 by model, each of them nearly triple the ID4, and the ID4 is not not even just behind Tesla. They're behind Fiat, behind the Kia, and then Hyundai and Kia, I think, are, I guess, considered slightly more competitive in the European EV market space. Again, in March, you can see that Tesla Model 3, Model Y way ahead of the Volkswagen and of any other thing once you weed out the plug-in hybrids. So I think when the Berlin factory drops the price 15,000, they already could be making up to 10,000 this quarter, and should ramp up to 50,000, 100,000 in Q4 and certainly in quarters in 2023. I think by shaving off the $15,000 price and constantly being able to deliver the high volume, that they will have this 8-to-1, just like in the US, having that kind of dominant market share in Europe. Because they're taking out the import duties and shipping costs, so giving them a price cut, not because of technology, it's because you're building in that market. So Volkswagen considered on front in Europe with 18.2% of the EV market, but that's BEV and plug-in hybrids. So its volume increase of 8%. Their overall market share is 24%. That includes their, when you talk about, ICE cars and diesel cars. So their plug-in hybrid vehicles is probably about 6% of that, 1/3. So maybe 1/2, but things like 1/3. So then they have 12% of the battery electric vehicle market, and Tesla is 15%. So in terms of like battery electric vehicles, before we have this lower priced Berlin vehicles coming out, Tesla already in the lead in terms of battery electric vehicles that they're shipping over from China. Stellantis is second place with 3.7%, but again, Stellantis has predominantly plug-in hybrids. If you look back over here, the Kia is a Stellantis vehicle, that is 1/3 the sales of the Model 3 or the Model Y. So 1/6 the combined thing for their top model. And if you add up all the models, they're probably at 7% battery electric vehicle market. So again, behind Tesla, before Tesla gets even more competitive with the Berlin factory ramp. And so Tesla, I think, will double the addressable market. I think that an improved silicon anode based vehicle will extend the the iron LFP batteries, so you can use fewer of them and lower the price of the vehicle, and coming with a lower priced Model 3, Model Y. So the lowest end Model 3 is just short of $40,000, just above $40,000 in China still. So if you were able to improve the efficiency by 10%, then 10-20%, which silicon battery would, but the overall vehicle, not just the batteries, 10-15%, then you can look at getting down to a $35,000 starter Model 3, which I think would be, starting to chew into that $30,000 up market, which is a sweet spot for Europe and for China to get to a larger addressable market. Cybertruck tripled US sales. So I personally think it will be 8 million sales in 2025, not 2.5 million. And that's my bear case. I think there's a possibility with a good 30K vehicle and the successful launch of Cybertruck that Tesla could get to 16 million vehicles in 2025, which would blow away, the 2.5 million projection from Bloomberg. Here's the U.S. market, which is, a lot of light trucks, SUVs, and pickups, which Volkswagen has virtually no market share in, never competed, all these competitive companies never competing in markets that have existed for decades, but somehow they're going to start competing in these new markets. So the Volkswagen ID4, 250 to 280 miles of range with an 82 kilowatt hour pack. So if you use iron LFP batteries in there, you would have way less than 200 miles of range, probably 180 miles of range. And iron LFP will be 60% batteries. So they're rolling out all these, ID4, ID3, the Buzz, ID, whatever, all these, obviously ID platform. They'd have to come up with a completely new platform in order to use LFP batteries, and they would have to figure out how to get out weight out of their vehicles and stuff like that. If you look at core efficiency, which is battery divided by range divided by weight, Tesla vehicles are in the 5.2 to 5.9 range for most of the vehicles. The 5.9 to 6.2 are their super performance vehicles. But 5.2 to 5.8 is where most of the vehicles are, mainly 5.5, 5.6. And then Volkswagen, Volvo, Porsche, they're up around 7.3 to 9. They're among the worst in terms of core efficiency. Okay, so that means you have to use more batteries in order to move a vehicle. Look at that ID4, 82 kilowatt pack, 250 miles of range, 4,500 pounds, right? And if they shave off, like 500 pounds and get more range out of it, 20% more range. So 10% less weight, 20% more range, just to get competitive with Tesla. So, it just seems impossible if you're using, 20% more batteries, 30% more batteries to do the work. It makes the acceleration worse, makes other things worse, and you can see the acceleration numbers are not as good. Under Kia, 310 miles of range for a 77 kilowatt pack. So the Kia EV6 is more competitive, right? You got like 40 to 60 miles more range with less batteries, 5 kilowatt hours less batteries. So then they're in the range. They're within 10%, topping out at even have a 5.5 core efficiency. So getting within 10% of Tesla. Of course, Tesla is going to come out with their front rear castings and do other things to get further improvements to start pulling away again. But, hats off to Kia and Hyundai, they're getting close, right? But, they're way better than the Volkswagen vehicles. Of course, the acceleration, 0 to 60 is far worse. People used to care when they compared cars about, acceleration, like, a sports car would cost more, BMW would cost more because they had better acceleration. That still kind of performance-wise matters. But, at least, they sacrificed, the core efficiency in order to get to, something in the range of the electric equivalent miles per gallon. And then the Chevy Bolts and Ford, are also way up in the toward the sevens, gauge close to 6.9, 6.5, versus the 5.5 of a Tesla, right? 25% away and against less acceleration. And the Ford CEO, Jim Farley, said it cost $18,000 for a Mach-E battery pack. I think Tesla's battery packs are way below, $13,000, and the LFP ones are probably $5,000, $7,000. So that would mean, this cost advantage would be, like $7,000, $13,000 for Tesla. And the battery packs for the Volkswagen, I think, are similar to the Fords. Maybe a few percentages better, but GM, Ford, Volkswagen have the same kind of battery pack costs, and Tesla just way better. And so R and LFP are the ones that are down around $6,000. A 60 kilowatt pack, less than 100 kilowatt hours. That's $100 per kilowatt hour. The kilowatt hours on quote, raw battery cells are down around $60 to $80 for the iron LFP. They're at half that cost. So you already have more efficiency using fewer batteries, and then you're getting even lower cost batteries, which are only usable if you have high efficiency. So if you don't have iron LFP, you just can't compete on that. And then the Rivian, Ford number, just look at the trucks, but trucks are not relevant for Volkswagen because they're not making any. The BYD vehicles. So the BYD ones, like I said, they're a bit more competitive. I still believe that the Teslas are better, but BYD has some competitive vehicles, which they make for almost no profit. BYD's profit seems to be from their cell phone batteries and their current plug-in hybrid vehicles. So for comparing the core efficiency of China-made vehicles, you have to look at they have the NEDC ranges. NEDC is their equivalent of kind of like the EPA, and these are the vehicles. So they have far higher ranges, 20-30% more range. So it changes the core efficiency down to like 4.4 for Tesla. Tesla has a Model 3, should include it here, that has like a high 3 core efficiency. The BYD core efficiency up at 5.5, so it's it's close to the Model Y performance, but I think the performance vehicles have sacrificed some core efficiency in order to get the performance. So still, Tesla has a 20-30% advantage when you compare apples to apples, same NEDC range versus EPA range. XPeng has some, again, decent vehicles. And then for the trucks, again, Volkswagen nowhere to be found here. I think that Rivian, GM, and Ford will have trouble ramping, and that Tesla will come in and ramp their Cybertruck and be able to take large market share. You have to be able to make the vehicles, have the batteries, make the vehicles. The EV market share, for the world, we're past the 10% range we just seen here, and then things grow faster. So in 3 to 4 years, we go from the 20%, 30% in China up to that 60, 80% range. So we will see this massive shift to EVs. So it's a land grab for market share of EVs. And who have the batteries in the factories now will be able to do it. You can't like start one up in 2-3 years and compete for that because you just won't have it ramped. And Tesla is outselling even gasoline vehicles in California. They sold 20,000 Model Ys and 20,000 Model 3s in the first quarter of 2022. And the highest selling other vehicle of any kind was the Toyota RAV4 with about 15,000. And then the Austin production is going to come online. Fremont's going to increase in their production. So we could be looking at an additional 500,000 to 800,000 vehicles. So in a quarter, another 100,000, 150,000 vehicles, which would then, and then the shift from that will be because of these high gas prices, which makes gasoline vehicles $10,000 to $20,000 more expensive to operate over 5 years, and $2,000, $3,000 to $5,000 in gas alone. So then if you get to that 150,000 more vehicles in a quarter, then you go from the 12th place currently, up to number one. You outsell Ford, the Ford F Series, if you can get up to 150,000, 200,000 vehicles, unless Ford goes back to 200,000 vehicles in a quarter like they did in 2021. And again, you see in the US market, Volkswagen nowhere to be found. They never were, okay? And all these big trucks and stuff, primarily. Although there is the Camry in number 7, the RAV4 in number 4, and the Honda CR-V. So the Honda CR-V and the RAV4 are basically competing with the Model Y. And also the 7-seat Model Y, although, is something that could displace some of the larger vehicles, maybe the Highlander up here, people who want to, just want the third row seats and want 7 seats, the Model Y could take out some of the Highlander sales. But mostly it's the Cybervan variants that will compete in the US. Car margins, Tesla up here 19%, Volkswagen at 6.3%. GM and Ford, all 1/3 of the margin that Tesla has. You can see 2019 to 2022, pre-pandemic to now, in Germany, Volkswagen has lost 31% sales. Tesla has gained 300%. So everyone's losing share in Germany, and Europe is losing sales. Tesla's increasing it. So not sure what Bloomberg is looking at. Tesla built the batteries, has the battery supplies, from CATL, and the capacity, and it's going to be ramping. And the back orders are over 500,000. So, we know that they're more demand than they can produce. So they ramp up production to meet that demand. They will have more sales. And they're best positioned along with BYD currently with the iron LFP batteries. The China makers will be going hard into iron LFP. Great Wall has the S-Volt battery makers. They're going to be making, double the world production of batteries. The world made 300 gigawatt hours of batteries. They're targeting, 500, 600,000 gigawatt hours of battery in 2025. So they, Great Wall and S-Volt are planning to convert, batteries into vehicles in 2025. Great Wall again makes cheap cars, cheap ICE cars, so they'll make cheap EVs. So we'll see how that go. But so Tesla LFP batteries, over half, going to 2/3 of their cars are LFP batteries. A lot of supply they're getting from CATL. Where the Volkswagen supply of iron LFP batteries, and where the vehicles then actually have acceptable range from Volkswagen. Again, don't see it. The ramp in LFP batteries for CATL happened last year, and it's continuing. So, and that enables 70,000 cars, will enable 70,000 cars per month if Tesla was able to use 80 gigawatt hours that they have contracted with CATL. So it's just Tesla has supplies to ramp for another 1 million vehicles, and they'll continue to get more as CATL plans to make a lot more iron LFP batteries. So it's clear, batteries are already there a year or two before you ramp up. Okay. 2025, China EV demand, like I said, it's going to roll forward, like I've already discussed it, going to go from 5 to 6 million this year up to 18 to 20 million in 2025. And we have the distribution of makeup. So somebody Bloomberg's wrong. Where are the batteries? And can one of their high production makers use iron LFP batteries? Are they projecting legacy joint ventures with China makers? Like they had Toyota coming out of nowhere to get to 1 million vehicles, which presumably means the projecting success of the joint venture between BYD and Toyota to make an electric version of the Corolla. Are they double counting cheap China EVs? They're assigning the 500,000 EVs or whatever in to GM, which is made by the Wuling joint venture. China will go to 68% EVs total in 2025. So that's 15 to 21 million vehicles. 8 to 12 million of those will be super cheap EVs. Europe will be 8 to 12 million EVs in 2025. US 5 to 8 million EVs in 2025. And Volkswagen uncompetitive in the US. And Tesla's getting 15. Tesla buyers in Europe will be getting $15,000 price cut with localized production. The Volkswagen ID4 is 5th in the US, like I said, 10 times less than Tesla's, actually 30 times less than Tesla in the US. Europe EVs, 18%, Volkswagen 16%, Stellantis, with a padding of plug-in hybrid vehicles. So Volkswagen actually at 12%, I think Stellantis is probably at 8%, and Tesla's at 15%. So Tesla's ranked #1 in Europe for battery electric vehicles. Volkswagen with 3rd in the unit sales globally, 3 times less than Tesla in Q1. So we'll see if they can pull off some miracles in Q4. I say Tesla Berlin, no import duties ramping up big. And then that inefficiency, 30 hours to 10 to make a car, Volkswagen CEO said it. So Tesla will more than double in Europe in 2023, 500K or more cars from Berlin, still exporting cars from China. Tesla, I think, could easily get 40%, maybe 50% share in Europe. In peak delivery month, Tesla has 33% of the market share, even with high duties. So Tesla had uneven deliveries throughout the quarter because they can only deliver, more in the first months of a quarter because of the whole shipping export cycle out of China. But the Berlin factory will even that have constant production then, so they won't have to have this as lumpy a thing, except for whatever they're shipping out of China. So I'm thinking 36% sustainable, 40K plus EV market share for Tesla, and I think it'll be 50 to 60% share in 2025. The 36% just assuming somehow this competition will get better, but it is not happening yet, and not for the next 3 years. There'll be less US decline. I'm predicting more Cybertruck volume than Rivian, Ford, GM, which Volkswagen not competing for. And then there's the issue of lower cost EVs, with more silicon anodes, more silicon in the anodes to increase the range of LFP batteries, will enable lower cost vehicle that has, say, instead of 50 kilowatt hour of the batteries, 30 kilowatts, 35 kilowatts, and then dropping down even 25 kilowatt hours batteries. So then you can make these really low cost EVs that have acceptable range. So not a cheap cost car, but not a cheap performance vehicle in terms of that. So that's why the ICE cars are doomed, because the EVs will continue to improve, and I think Tesla will be leading that charge with superior iron LFP battery vehicles. So thus I'm looking at, bear case of 8 million vehicles to 16 million. I think with a really superior iron LFP vehicle, it could be more than 12 to 18 million range. So thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and support me on Patreon. And thanks for listening.